Climate change and ozone depleting substances are two big topics that are being fused into one in this discussion here. And climate change is one big topic that rocks the world. All around the world are talking and trying to understand the changes of climate around them. Just imagine that desert is now being flooded, and that 2 hours, 3 hours of rain can flood already a city. This is big change, and the typhoon are becoming stronger and fiercer, more bigger than we have seen before. Trust us, we are not so young, and we have seen those changes. Anyway, we talk about it and understand them and make some mitigation and adaptation measures so that we can live through these changes and hope that we can bring back whatever we had before with our intervention, because this climate change is said to be human made in making our own abuses to the environment. Before we proceed to change in climate, we have to differentiate and understand the difference between climate and weather. People tend to interchange these two, that we need to understand that weather is for short term and climate is for long term, and that weather can change anytime, but change in climate is for a longer period, and that when there's change, it's hard to revert to each original situation. So that is why it's very important that we have to understand these two. One is more critical than the other. Since climate is long term and weather is for short term. And there are lots of differences that we can enumerate between these two. And we'll be enumerating in this next slide. Here is a tabulation on the difference between climate and weather. So climate is a long-term average weather pattern in one place, while weather is a condition at a particular time and place, including rainfall and temperature, and that weather could be worse or better than the average weather pattern. It could not follow an average condition. It could be bad or good, not be all the time on the average. Climate is for long term and weather is a short term. Another difference is that climate is influenced by the slow changes in the ocean, the land, the orbit of the earth around the sun, and the energy output. The energy output of the sun is constant, only that how it is being transmitted to us is the one that is changing, that will influence the climate. But weather can change very rapidly from day to day and from year to year because of the condition that is rapidly changing. So the weather will be affected by that. And there was so-called weather. So that means that you change when the condition warrant for us to do it. Anyway, so climate is fundamentally controlled by the balance of energy of the earth and the atmosphere. So energy output of the sun going to us is basically the same and constant. However, it is now the atmosphere balance that determine if there will be more or less energy that will be transmitted to the earth. It is like a filter happening above us and responsible for determining the climate on every places on earth. However, weather changes involve shift in temperature, precipitation, wind, and cloud pattern. It could be changing from good to bad and bad to good. It is being affected by the energies brought about by the temperature, the cloud, the precipitation, and the wind around us on Earth. Parts of the Earth's design in providing agent for life on Earth is providing an avenue for the chemicals that are very essential to life to circulate among the three zones of the Earth. And these three zones are called lithosphere, atmosphere, and the hydrosphere. Six essential chemicals that constitute 98% of the component in a living matter is moving around the earth and up for grab when it is time to do it. And this cycle is called the biogeochemical cycle. There is a continuous movement of this chemical to provide life. There are six cycles all in all, and these six cycles are the six chemicals that are essential for the making of life. The first one is water cycle, the carbon cycle, the oxygen cycle, nitrogen cycle, phosphorus cycle, and the sulfur cycle. These are the chemicals that move around the earth from one place to the other. When there is a disruption, then the living things will be affected that are on this planet. This is very relevant, and this is also affected by the changes in climate, as this is dependent on the energy that is being transmitted into our planet. Our climate is being captured by this illustration here, but it all started with the energy source, which is the sun here. So it provides energy, and with that energy, there is movement and cycle happening. So let's look at the cloud. So this is the cloud, and then the cloud is moving to that direction, and then once it arrives inland, then it rains, and then once it rains, it flows back to the sea. From the sea, it will evaporate again to the clouds. So that completes the water cycle. In the dropping of the rain, gives the opportunity for us to use the water for living. Water is life, and without water, we cannot live. So in here, you can see the three zones that are in Earth. So we have here the atmosphere, you have here the biosphere, and of course the land, which is the lithosphere. All of this movement happening here is due to the energy of the sun, but the energy of the sun is not directly reaching us, but there's some sort of filter in the atmosphere. The sun energy is being filtered, and that filter here will determine what is the intensity of energy being sent to the earth surface, and this is what regulates the temperature and of course the climate of the earth. And there are other cycles happening around here that are also very important: the oxygen cycle, the nitrogen cycle, the carbon cycle, phosphorus cycle, the sulfur cycle, and all those chemicals that are used for the living things and that are agent for life. So to be able to understand climate change is to understand first the concept of the greenhouse effect. What will happen if there is no greenhouse effect? The Earth's surface would be 30 degrees colder, or it will be approximately minus 15 degrees, and possibly it is not warm enough to sustain life. Gases that are in the atmosphere are being designed to be there to provide the needed energy that we have for the life or for the sustenance of life here on Earth. So that is very important. So greenhouse effect, in fact, is not really bad at all, and it is being designed to be there. Only that when there is an imbalance, then it bring new problem when the balance of this content of that gases on in the atmosphere will be changed, and that will trigger a change in the climate. As we have said, greenhouse gases is not really bad. It is important for our sustenance, for the sustenance of life here on Earth. And these greenhouses gas are naturally occurring gases that keeps the earth comfortably warm enough for plants and animals to live in at an average temperature of 15 degrees centigrade. They act as a natural blanket around the earth. trapping heat, much like the glass roof of a greenhouse. So it is a natural trap system designed by the maker of this world to make sure that there are enough energies that is coming from the sun that is it just enough to be useful for its existence. So that is the importance of greenhouse gases. Because if there is no greenhouse gas, then there will be no or less energy that will be distributed on this planet. So these are the greenhouse gases being identified that is on the atmosphere, in the atmosphere, and that is responsible for trapping the heat from the sun. And they are the water vapor, the carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and ozone. So these gases are there in the atmosphere and stop the sun's radiation from getting out of the Earth's atmosphere and if in effect hit the Earth's surface. Ozone is here. We are also concerned with the depletion of the ozone, but this is not related to the global warming, but rather on the health effect or the radiation that is being filtered by the ozone. The ozone layer is thinning in the Earth's pool. There is the ozone hole, but that is not the concern here because the concern in here is the addition of more carbon dioxide and methane in the layer that is responsible for the greenhouse effect. An illustration to compare the natural greenhouse effect that is being designed for us to live in and the human enhanced greenhouse effect in the atmosphere. We have that gas being placed there naturally to trap the heat. So this is natural system that is happening. So the sun radiates to the earth and then the re-radiation is being trapped here, re-radiated again to maintain the temperature and then produce a certain climate in those places. However, when there is a human enhanced greenhouse effect, these gases, carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous gases increase in quantity such that the capability to trap the solar radiation is being enhanced so that there are more re-radiation coming back to the earth and in effect increasing the temperature on the surface and therefore trigger an increase in the temperature and therefore trigger changes in climate condition in various places on Earth. This picture here depicts on why we have increased the carbon dioxide content of the atmosphere because of the generation of the carbon dioxide gas from the industries of the power industry that generate power and the problem is being compounded with the deforestation and loss of trees and vegetation which is the sink absorb carbon dioxide and in that way there is a reduction in the capability to absorb carbon dioxide and there is also the lots of forest fire, big forest fire and therefore reducing the capability to absorb carbon dioxide and that is part supposed to be of the carbon cycle and that you cannot arrest the carbon dioxide on earth and so there is only way to go but up and join with the rest of the greenhouse gases. So these are the sources of the greenhouse gases, both natural and human-induced sources. So for carbon dioxide, the natural sources are coming from the soil and the ocean, while the human-induced sources are burning of fossil fuel for power manufacturing, industrial processes, fuel for transportation, land use changes, and deforestation. For methane, the natural sources are wetland, termites, and ocean. And the human-induced sources are flooded rice agriculture, livestock production, waste management system, landfill, etc. And for the nitrous oxide, the natural sources are coming from the tropical soil, wet forest, and ocean. And for the human-induced, they are coming from nitrogen-based fertilizer and chemical acid production processes and combustion processes. And for the CFCs, fluorocarbons, there are none from the natural sources and they are coming from the coolant, sealant, and insulations. So these are the sources of the greenhouse gases, and there are lots coming from the human-induced sources. And in the industrial world, there are more that have been done and is produced. So we have to know the difference between global warming and climate change. So global warming is the gradual increase in the Earth's average surface temperature due to the increase in greenhouse gases emission in the atmosphere from the anthropogenic sources, while climate change is a significant change in the state of climate that persists for an extended period, identified by changes in the means and variability of the properties, including average temperature and precipitation. So global warming leads to climate change, and there's a difference in that. Strong typhoons are coming to us, never heard before, and that it really bring so much damage and catastrophe to the area. And we have the Type 1 Milenio and Remain that damage the Albay province, and we have also the Yolanda that province that damage many part of the Visayas. We have major big landslide happening in southern Leyte, in Quezon, and just recently in Naga, Cebu. And in southern Leyte, that was in Gensaubon. There are lots of deaths, and also in Naga City here in Cebu. So these are triggered by the rain getting into the cracks and even some mining activities that are not regulated and therefore bring damage to our environment. Country, we are asked what are the manifestation signal of the climate change in our country. As a country geographically situated in the Pacific Ring of Fire and along the typhoon belt, the Philippines is no stranger to natural hazard and its impact. In From 1951 to 2010, annual mean temperature increased by 0.65 degrees with a mean rate of 11 degrees per decade from 1960 to 2003. Here are already significant trend of increasing number of hot days and warm nights, but decreasing numbers of cold days and cold nights. Both maximum and minimum temperatures are generally getting warmer. Extreme rainfall intensity in 1950 to 2000 to 2008 in most part of the country, the intensity of the rainfall is increasing with Baguio, Tacloban, and Iloilo showing statistically increasing significantly. Frequency of existing daily rainfall from 1951 to 2008, most part of the country are generally increasing. Calapan, Laog, Iloilo, and Tacloban shows statistically a significant increasing trend, while a significantly decreasing trend is found in Palawan. So there are really changes, manifestation that we are in the climate change. So in addition to the manifestation, Mag-asa Independent Studies and Climate model came up with the following changes in the climate regime from 2020 to 2050. A rise in the country a mean annual temperature by about zero point 0.9 degrees centigrade to 1 to zero point 0.1 degrees centigrade for 2020 and 1.8 to 2.2 degrees by 2050. Dry season of March to May while will become drier. Drier season of March to May will become drier and wet season from June to November will become wetter with rainfall increase ranging from 0.9 to 63% for Luzon and 2 to 22% in the Visayas. Reduction in rainfall in most area in Mindanao is seen for all season by 2050. A much active and stronger southwest monsoon is projected as seen in the significant increases in rainfall in June to August becomes greater with time. In general, by 2020 and 2050, dry days are likely to become more frequent over the country and with more heavy rainfall days expected over Luzon and Visayas. So these are the expectations from Pag-asa. Of course, climate change has a major impact, and the impact in general is in the changes in temperature, in weather pattern, and in the sea level rise. There are 6 areas of concern that this climate change impact on, and on the details, on what will be happening to them, we will be talking about them. So for coastal marine ecosystem, it will impact on the coastal erosion, storm surges, coastal flooding, saltwater intrusion, coral bleaching, and ocean acidification. In agriculture, it adds heat stress, shifting monsoon, drier soil, water shortage, irrigation demand, decreased rice crop production, impact on livestock production, occurrence of weed infestation, and disease. In human health is also impact on an increase in the vector-based disease like malaria, increase in the cardiovascular diseases, increase in the upper respiratory disease, and occurrence of infectious diseases. It also impacts on the water resources, impacts on the hydrologic cycle, the water cycle, changing evaporation, precipitation, and runoff patterns. We have a lot of floodings, which would affect water resources, fresh water quantity and quality, impact on the power generation. And then for forest and diversity, there will be shift in feeding points and disruption of flight patterns for migratory birds, extinction of some mountain plants and animals, change in the species distribution and composition, invasion of weed and alien species, loss of vegetation, loss and migration of plants and animal species. On industry and energy, it change in the energy supply, impact on the energy source, and there are many impacts on industries. So it's really doing a lot of impact, and with an impact, we need to have a mitigation for that. With all the presentation and evidences that we have gathered and we have experienced ourselves, the next question that we should ask is, what can we do? There are two general things that we can do to be able to live through with these change, and that is through mitigation and adaptation. In mitigation, we have to reduce, minimize, and avoid the use of the greenhouse gases, and by limiting the use of power or change to more friendly sources. And by adaptation, increase the resilience and coping capacity of the sector with the current and future changes. So we have to adapt to the change, and whenever it happens, then we will be ready. That is, that's the thing that we can do. Here are the adaptation measures for the climate change, and on the water sector. First is the expanded rainwater harvesting, which we have not fully utilized. We have a lot of rains, but we have not fully utilized the harvesting of rainwater. And me, myself, I consider rainwater as gold when it is still on air, but it becomes a stone when it reaches and touches the ground, because that is it becomes useless and will contribute to flooding and problems to the surrounding and environment. And then we have to enhance our water storage and conservation techniques. So we should use impoundment, and then water use, but desalination it will be the last option, because that is power intensive, and also water use and irrigation efficiency. So these are some of the measures, but you can improve on it better as long as you utilize water from other sources at this point. To adapt in agriculture, there will be an adjustment of the planting dates, then development of crop variety, crop relocation, improve land management, that is erosion control, and soil protection through tree planting. While agriculture now is the main driver in this pandemic time, because all other areas of economic concerns are in the downtrend, it is only in agriculture that is posting some positive numbers, and we have to improve on this area. So for the adaptation of the coastal area, we have to do relocation of residents living in along low-lying areas in the coastline, and particularly now that there will be some surges, so implement the 20-meter easement in the coastal area, set up marine reserves network to replenish coral and fish larvae, and on the mangrove we have to reforest those areas that used to be having mangrove as buffer for storm surges and wave and storm and typhoon. In the health sector, should promote sanitary practices and improve on the preventive care such as vaccine, and provide information and awareness, and also health surveillance and monitoring, because there will be surges in vector disease and on pulmonary disease. So we have to be very careful with our health nowadays. And we have also suffering now in pandemic. So the more we will be more careful. So in the energy sector, you have to strengthening of the overhead transmission and distribution infrastructure. We have to go for energy efficiency and the use of renewable sources, reduce on dependence of single sources. So we need to be more efficient and effective in the usage of energy and as much as possible reduce our reliance on the burning of the fossil fuel. We are now seeing this early warning system that is developed by the Disaster Risk Management Group, and these are color-coded warning system. So for the rainfall, we have already the yellow, orange, and red colors. So for the yellow, you have it's a warning, and then when there is a color orange, then it is now an alert level. And when it comes to the red warning, there is a need for evacuation. And we also have received cell phone messages about impending or warning for any um, abnormalities in the weather, even in strong rainfall. Then we ourselves have experienced those warning with our cell phones. On the mitigating measures and strategies for energy supply, we have to improve on the supply and distribution efficiency, fuel switching from coal to gas, nuclear power, renewable heat and power coming from hydropower, solar, wind, geothermal, and bioenergy. Combined heat and power, early application of carbon dioxide capture, then storage of removed carbon dioxide from natural gas. On the transport sector, have more fuel efficient vehicle, need to have hybrid vehicle, cleaner diesel vehicle, biofuel driven model shift from road transport to rail in public transport system, non-motorized transport like cycling and walking, land use and transport planning. And for the building, we need efficient lighting and daylighting, more efficient electrical appliances and heating and cooling devices, improve cook oven, stove, improve insulation, passive and active solar design for heating and cooling, alternative refrigeration fluid recovery and recycling of fluorinated gases. So these are some of the mitigating measures for those three sectors being mentioned. In the Philippines, the legal and policy framework on climate change in our country, and that we have already been active in the global um, agendas, and we ourselves have enacted a law for this uh, climate change and that we are implementing on it already. Our country, the Philippines, responds to the international call to address climate change, and we have signed the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change in June 1992 and ratified it on August 2, 1994. It is the foundation of global effort to combat climate change. We also have signed the Kyoto Protocol on April 15, 1998 and ratified it on November 20, 2003. So we are really active on climate change and we believe that we need to do something, and with that we have our legal framework done. Being very serious on climate change, we have enacted a law or which is called the Climate Change Act of 2009, or known as RA 9729, signed by the President on October 23, 2009. It is an act of mainstreaming climate change into government policy formulation, establishing the framework, strategy, and program on climate change, creating for this purpose the Climate Change Commission and other purposes. And it is to ensure and strengthen the adaptation of the country's natural ecosystem and human communities to climate change. So we have the law and regulation to support that. So after the passage of the Climate Change Act, the National Framework Strategy on Climate Change from the year 2010 to 2022 was made, and it is only 2 years now that the strategy will have to be changed and to project to the next few years or maybe to 2050. So this is signed by the President on April 28 in 2010 and adopted by the Climate Change Commission and is the country's roadmap towards climate change resiliency. It is to be implemented at the local level with the LGU at the frontline agency in the formulation, planning, and implementation of its climate change action plan. So building an economically stable and ecologically sustainable town known as Ecotown is the key approach to this framework. A social contract with the Filipino people, there was issued Executive Order number 43, and that the Cabinet Cluster System in Section 10, Climate Change, Adaptation and Mitigation. Adapting climate change, adaptation and mitigation measures by local government unit and their respective communities, NGA, and the general public, and ensure that they are incorporated in their annual work plan and budget where applicable. So we are really supporting and believe that climate change is here and we need to adapt and mitigate.